Aaron, where are you at, buddy? Way in the back.
I'm not sure if you've heard of him and remembered his words, but you've definitely seen him and remembered his face and outfits and hair.
You know, when I first saw him, I thought he looked like the Undertaker. You know. And then I met him. He was more of a Viking, teddy bear Viking, which is fine. But I think my favorite description of Aaron Ra is when we had him on Talk Heathen, and somebody said that he looks like a cross between Ozzy Osbourne and the bad guy from Flash Gordon. I thought it was great.
Yeah. So
Hi,
how you
Aaron.
doing?
I'm rather stoked. I just got notified that the fundraiser I was working on has just achieved its goal.
Really?
Now, let me tell you what this fundraiser was. The Evolutionary Studies Institute at the University of the Witwatersrand in Johannesburg, South Africa, asked me to fund a paleontological expedition into the Karoo. And they said if the funds are successful, they'll take me with them.
Oh!
Yes.
Rock on!
I'm used to not knowing what the words you say mean because they're about science as opposed to a language I don't speak.
The
that's
Karoo is a
amazing.
wilderness area that actually has lions and rhinos and stuff like that. And I'm going to be camping in a pup tent.
Wow, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
While digging for therapsids.
So I know you just came up and just joined
That's what
us
I don't
kind of
know.
like, you know, do, I'm Aaron Ra. Does anybody not know who Aaron Ra is?
No.
For
Hi,
you,
I'm
sir.
Aaron Ra.
Aaron is an amazing science communicator. He is a experienced debater, author, amazingly kind human being. Aaron has gone out of his way to further science education and to help really kind of disseminate that information while still being absolutely unapologetic when it comes to standing up and telling people, no, you're fucking wrong. And Aaron, you were an absolute hero when I met you. I fangirled that day until I lost my voice.
Quit blowing smoke up my ass.
But I'm absolutely thrilled to have you up on the stage. So, like, can we get a proper applause for Aaron Ra?
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
I never thought that I would be on a stage and hear someone shame the audience into enthusiasm, but you guys are great. Literally the best audience I've ever seen.
All right.
So, you've been in the movement for like 20 some odd years, and I don't know that I've ever actually heard the story of your deconversion.
Oh, my deconversion.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, well, I kind of went a weird way. I was baptized Mormon when I was 8, but I never identified as Mormon because I didn't know that I believed everything that was required for a Mormon to believe. How would I know? How would I know that some other religion that I didn't know anything about might better align with me? So I never identified as Mormon. I don't understand why everybody else doesn't think that. But in Texas, people think they're born Republican. And that they owe the party their allegiance because of that birthright somehow. That wasn't the way I thought. And when we lived in a Mormon-dominant area where the Mormons own and control everything, there were places in the Four Corners area of this country where if you're not Mormon, you're not employed. So when we moved to California, to Los Angeles, which is where I got my accent the first time, I noticed the interdenominational bigotry of the Baptists versus the Mormons and so forth. And I got to see how the Christians treated each other, because Mormons identify as Christian. Mormons think they're Christian. Other Christians don't, but then other Christians don't think that Catholics are Christian either. So there's very little credence in that. So I was told that God was a conclusively proven scientific fact. And then I learned what all of that meant, and that no, it isn't. But the pinnacle for me was I thought that I had all kinds of scientific evidence for why I believed what I believed. I didn't believe on faith. I believed because everybody knew that there was all this historic evidence. There's all these there's all these studies of showing telekinesis, and there's demonstrations of telepathy. But there was so much pseudoscience woo on television in the guise of documentaries in the 1970s that I'm a 12-year-old kid, right? I bought it. It's true. It's on TV, right? So eventually I start one by one whittling things down and realizing this isn't true, this isn't true, this isn't true, whatever. Eventually, though, I was reborn in Christ.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, for about 2 hours.
R and Ra, everyone.
And so I asked a friend of mine, because I did the ceremony, and then as you do, you psych yourself into these sort of things. I'm stumbling about in this euphoric daze and all like that, dizzy feeling and everything. And I mentioned to a friend of mine, I said, how do I know that this is really the power of Jesus and that I'm not just psyching myself up to think this? And he grabbed me by both shoulders and said, just keep telling yourself it's Jesus until you believe it. And that was my last instant as a Christian.
Holy crap.
But
All
that
right.
was so dishonest.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Now, it took me a while to get to atheism, though.
Oh.
Because although I discarded the Christian God, I wasn't sure if there was a God. I didn't really embrace the God thing at all. I'd already read The Science of Self-Realization by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
that's another one I don't know.
And I got into some of the transcendental meditation and that sort of thing, and I'm still thinking that there's some substance between the powers of the mind, psionics and all of that. I think that there's something there.
Oh my gosh, I want to see Wu, R, and Ra. That is amazing. Like with some crystals and shit, like jade.
Oh, dude, you have no idea. I was such a fucking hippie.
You know what? I can
I
see it a little
slept under
bit.
a pyramid.
What?
Wait.
No. Let it be.
All right.
Just bask in it. Okay.
I wore the double tourmaline quartz crystal Odin's hammerhead. I did that.
Why?
Because I
Because
couldn't
he-
figure out what kind of a neo-pagan I was going to be. So I don't. So
And
No.
now he's R and Ra.
I need to know more about this.
So I didn't.
Hold on.
It's not like I really
So you wore a
embraced.
crystal hammerhead around your.
It's not like I embraced Asatru or anything, but I actually thought that there was power in crystals. I dated all these beautiful hippies.
Yeah.
That all wore the crystals. They were all in. I was in crystal shops shopping with these ladies all the time.
Yeah.
It's just everybody in my world seems to believe this kind of horse shit, right? And I think there's scientific data to back it up. Because everybody has personal testimonies for
Sure.
it. Right? And sometimes the pagans get better testimonies than the Christians. I know a guy who lives not 2 miles from my house. I've known him for 20, 30 years, who is a disciple of Bast, the Egyptian cat-headed goddess. Why? Because she personally invited him to become her disciple by appearing physically manifest, speaking audibly, and giving him a hug.
All right.
So,
So hold on, because this is actually something really important that I've been wanting to work out with you and talk to you about because I think you'd be a good person to ask. But I've got a debate coming up, and so people say, "Oh, well, this is the fact," or "Here is evidence." Arn, what is a fact?
A fact is a point of objectively verifiable data.
Okay, what is evidence?
That would be the objectively verifiable data that is positively indicative of or exclusively concordant with one position over any other.
Okay, a little louder and into the mic.
Evidence is a body of objectively verifiable facts which are positively indicative of or exclusively concordant with one available position over any other, so that the same fact does not become evidence of two different mutually exclusive conclusions. It can't be. The definition that you find in the dictionary is the fact that indicates, which is much simpler. So I had an argument with this girl at the rally out there. I don't know if anybody saw that, where she's working for Answers in Genesis, and she tells me that her evidence is that she has a conscience. And I have a conscience, and the conscience came from God. And I say, well, actually, you have a conscience because we are evolved as a social species. So if we both have a different explanation, yours and the right one, for what the conscience is, then the conscience is just a fact with two explanations. It is not evidence of both, because that's logically impossible.
So how do you determine what evidence is? Walk me through this.
I had the same problem with her.
Let's do this.
he's playing
Okay.
angel's advocate right
All
now.
right,
That's fine.
let me give you an example. So she's going to claim the same fact as evidence of both of our positions. Okay, let me give you an example of evidence being indicative of only one position and not the other.
Okay.
The fact that we are classified taxonomically as apes. That is a fact we can verify that is, of course it aligns with evolution. It does not align with creationism. The fact that evolution happens, that new species are, that we have this biodiversity through these, the rates of genetic drift, when it's whether or not we have natural selection on it, that's a fact that supports evolution. Nothing ever proves, no one fact by itself ever proves anything.
That's
We
not
just
how
have
science
a
works.
body of evidence that supports. So we stack the body of evidence on this side. And now what facts do you have that does not align with evolution, that is not also accounted for by science, but that only concords with your God hypothesis?
That also explains what we've been able to explain and has predictive power across multiple fields
I'm not
of
even
study.
I'm not even asking for a theory. I'm not asking for predictive power. What fact do you have? Because every Christian tells me they have evidence.
Yeah.
The guy that was standing next to her, the one with the hat, when I was here a couple of years ago, I went to the Ark encounter, that guy showed up and said, well, we have evidence of our God. No, the fuck you don't. So I told him, turn on the cameras. I'm going to get this guy on video. I said, I've asked every Christian tells me they have evidence. Nobody's ever had evidence. Cameras are rolling. What's your evidence for God? Well, you can't explain how life came.
But
Even if we couldn't, which we can, but even if we couldn't, that's the argument from ignorance or from incredulity,
Yes.
right?
personal incredulity, yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know, therefore
So that's a
God.
fallacy.
Or
That's
I
not
cannot
evidence.
conceive of this, therefore God.
So let's say, we know that we have a lot of explanations for things now that we didn't have, say, 200 years ago, right? So we go back to 200 years ago, when before we had the germ theory of disease, which is only a theory, by the way, it's never been proven.
Go
right?
fuck yourself.
Does that mean that before we had the germ theory of disease, does that mean that diseases were really a curse of witchcraft? Of course not.
No.
Not knowing the right answer doesn't mean you have the right answer.
Right.
It's not, I don't know, therefore magic.
Fair enough. Yes.
Okay. I was going to say, when you phrase that in the form of a question, I was going to I know this one. Yeah, no. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So I hate to be that asshole,
Well, yeah, you're paid to be that asshole. So
but
go for it.
Aaron, thank you so much for coming up. I really appreciate it.
You know what I'm going to do now?
What's up?
As soon as I get off the stage, I'm going outside. I'm going to find that little guy with the hat who's out there trying to hand out scriptures.
Bring him in. Bring him
He's
in.
standing out there in the
Bring him
rain,
in.
freezing.
Bring him in. Bring him in.
I'm
Can we
telling
have
you,
him up
it's
on
a
the
much
stage?
better time in here. It will change your life, and you'll be happier for it.
Bring him. Go get him. Let's hear it for Aaron Ra.